Let's go ahead and turn to our final guest of the day, Caitlin Fasista, author of Into the Heart of Middle-earth, Exploring Faith and Fellowship in J.R.R. Tolkien's The Lord of the Rings. Caitlin, thank you for coming on the Catholic Morning Show.
Thank you for having me. This is so fun.
It is wonderful to have you with us. Of course, Tolkien, rightly, finally, maybe some even say, getting not only the sort of public admiration that everyone who's ever been a fan knows that he's deserved, but really starting to, take a central place, even in Catholic understanding of modern literature, as it were, as being a master of the field. So when it comes to getting into the heart of what it must mean to look at the Lord of the Rings for all that it is, what would you say is the place to start? If you're going to talk about Into the Heart of the Middle-earth, where can people explore faith first and foremost with Tolkien's Lord of the Rings?
Oh, absolutely. Well, Tolkien, as a devout Catholic, was so inspired by his faith, and it really shines through in his stories. Of course, it wasn't an allegory, and I think that's really something that sets Tolkien apart, because he wasn't, setting out to say, Frodo equals Jesus, or anything like that, but instead his faith is so deeply woven into his story. And so really anyone who's interested in these aspects of his faith can kind of begin to unpack The Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit and even his other works like The Silmarillion, and you can see it kind of beginning to shine through as you're reading through it more carefully.
Now, famously, he's friends with all sorts of famous people in Oxford at the England of his time, but of course C.S. Lewis and Tolkien seen together in a lot of ways. And so you brought up allegory, so I thought it was important to point that out. If there's, they had their disagreements, as friends do, but one of them precisely is this idea about the best way, as it were, to get into the fictional, the fairy tale, these sort of ideas. And whereas, as you said, C.S. Lewis is more like Aslan equals Jesus, Tolkien talked about subcreation, which, of course, we don't have enough time on a morning show to totally tease out. But this idea, right, that it's not simply that what literature is a secret way to say more difficultly something you could say simpler in an essay, but that the literature in its form itself has something to teach us if we allow ourselves to be immersed in the reality of that story. Is that something that, when it comes to trying to point out the faith at the heart of Tolkien, that sometimes modern readers have trouble understanding because they too easily want it to be like a decoder ring practice, as it were?
Oh, absolutely. And I think Tolkien dealt with that a lot in his own lifetime, because he had so many people writing to him like, is the ring meant to equal this, or is Sauron meant to equal that? And he was really like, no, this is just a wonderful story that I wrote. And at the same time, there is so much rich symbolism under the surface. It's kind of bubbling under the whole story. And you can see the way that his world is woven together through this rich Catholic philosophy that he holds to in his own life. And so you can see this kind of bridging between his own life and his created fictional world.
And, of course, he is a master of so many things, a master of languages. He, of course, like in some ways, not single-handedly, but very important for making Beowulf important as it is, this sort of translation work that he does. And then if you look at something like the Silmarillion, showing his ability to create languages, to sort of understand the massive myths of what's going on. But sometimes what gets lost is just how wonderful of a story The Lord of the Rings is. And it's something to say that being able to tell a story about a story like that, as it were, an incarnational one, even if it's not about theology per se, but that it's the sort of Catholic sensibility that allows these characters in this sort of story to shine forth. Is that one of the hopes that you're hoping people who encounter your book begin to see in The Lord of the Rings?
Yeah, absolutely. Tolkien has this idea called the true myth, where he believes that all myths kind of stem from this original myth, and that is the Christian story. It's the creation of the world, the incarnation, the resurrection. You have this Christian story, and all other stories kind of flow from that, in the same sense that as created beings made by God, we kind of flow out from him. So Tolkien has this similar mindset when he's creating his own story, there are going to be echoes of the truth in the real world, in his fictional world.
I think one way, that you point this out that is very helpful, hopefully, for people to understand, is you talk about how saints that were important to Tolkien, like Therese's Little Way or Benedict's understanding of hospitality, that instead of making a stand-in for each of these saints, allowing what was central and important in their lives to inform what it would be to make a character worthy of emulation. And so you think about the idea of a little way being more powerful than a grand, strong way is sort of maybe the theme of the whole book, but certainly along the way is this idea of hospitality and home and being willing to care about a place but welcome the stranger as well. The Lord of the Rings is rife with this if we, as it were, stop trying to paint by the numbers, as it were, and allow the story to soak in as we enjoy reading it.
Absolutely. And it's kind of, I like to think about it like when you look at the stories of the saints, we have so many wonderful examples, but our goal in our spiritual journey isn't to simply copy the lives of the saints. I don't want to make myself into another Saint Therese of Lisieux. I want to be the saint that I was born to be. And so it's kind of similar with Tolkien's stories. He has all of these characters that have different traits of wonderful people, like the saints or other characters from the Bible, but he isn't trying to create, this one-to-one comparison with them. He wants to create his own characters that have this kind of life and importance to the story that draw from these examples without kind of just being carbon copies.
Absolutely. And, obviously one of the motivating factors for you writing this book is you obviously love the Lord of the Rings and Tolkien. And so obviously to ask what, prompted you to do this book is love of the work and love of the author. But what specifically, brought about you saying, okay, there's a way that I can help people enter into what Tolkien's about, what this story's about? What precipitated you saying it's time to write this in a book and share this with the world?
Well, this has always been my goal with Tea with Tolkien, which is the community that I lead online. And I started it about 9 years ago. And my goal has always been to cultivate a community that's inspired by the life, the works, and the faith of J.R.R. Tolkien. So we kind of take a comprehensive approach when we are studying Tolkien and discussing him and learning more about his stories. And so I've always kind of had this mission, and the book was the perfect opportunity for me to kind of boil it down into something that's easy. You can just pick it up off the shelf. It's not something you need to do a lot of homework before you're approaching it. It's a good introduction to Middle-earth. And so I wanted to take all of my work. Honestly, it's like my life's work boiled down into a book.
Well, I'm glad you put it this way because, again, speaking of other true myths, there's this true myth called Weird Catholic Twitter that existed for a while. And I didn't want to show my age or cards too much, but certainly Tea with Tolkien is an inhabitant of that universe. And so for me, it's very interesting to see how as your influence in that sector of the internet has now grown, and you're able to reach out in this book form. To me, it's not Middle Earth. Twitter is not Middle Earth, but certainly it was this interesting world that by getting popular online, precisely by being willing to bring about that community that you speak of, that to see your life work come to this sort of fruition. What was that like? What was it like to see that end up in this work now?
It's been very surreal. That's how I would put it. It's been just kind of a crazy journey. I have described myself kind of like Bilbo Baggins in the beginning of The Hobbit, when he has this wizard and these dwarves showing up at his door, and he's terrified. He's like, no, absolutely not. I can't go on any adventures. They make you late for dinner. That's not me at all. And I was so scared to write the book. It seemed like such a big project, that something way too big for me. But then, much like Bilbo, as I'm thinking about it, I really came to understand, I think this might be what I'm meant to be doing. And so I had to take kind of those brave first steps out of my door So I've really identified with Tolkien's hobbits through this whole journey because it's obviously, it's quite scary to put yourself out there to write a book, and it's a lot of work. So it's been such a joy, though.
Well, I have to use one more maybe pun-tastic Tolkien example. It seems like you go from the difference between The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings, like that sort of jump that Tolkien himself made. I'm guessing that like tweets versus this book, it seemed like you entered into like a new realm on the spiritual journey of the tea with Tolkien. Did that seem like something that you're like, okay, this has entered into a new phase in regards to that?
Yeah, it definitely felt like a sense of growing up where, Twitter is it's all fun and games. And then when a real book comes along, you're like, wow, this is really something new that I haven't experienced before. And it's a new challenge and a new adventure.
Well, the book is out from Ave Maria Press, Into the Heart of Middle-earth, Exploring Faith and Fellowship in J.R.R. Tolkien's The Lord of the Rings. We've said it so much, so obviously an online presence. Where can people find the vast majority of the rest of what you've been up to with Tolkien online?
Oh, of course, yeah. It's pretty simple. Everything on my website is at teawithtolkien.com, and then you can find me on pretty much every social media platform at teawithtolkien as well.
Well, just speaking from personal experience, you've made my day that I got a chance to talk with Tea with Tolkien. But so that shows you what I was up to circa 2010, I guess. So wonderful to have
awesome.
wonderful to have you on the Catholic Morning Show, Caitlin Fascista. Into the Heart of Middle-earth, Exploring Faith and Fellowship in J.R.R. Tolkien's The Lord of the Rings. Caitlin, thank you for coming on the Catholic Morning Show.
Thank you. This is so fun.